Good shape, good flat back three, played out well enough. And look, they didn't lose the game in normal time, did they? I would start Obi in the next game, yeah. I mean, they're playing Arsenal on Sunday as well, so there's a storyline there.
The turmoil at Manchester United continues. They've crashed out the FA Cup. They're 14th in the Premier League, and their greatest ever goal scorer is saying it's naive for their manager to be talking about winning the Premier League anytime soon. I'm Will Pugh. We're back in the Tactics Exposed studio. Sun Sports tactical guru Dean Scoggins joins me as ever. And Dino, despite United crashing out the FA Cup at home to Fulham on penalties, you have got some positive things to say about the Reds.
Yeah, you know me, I'm never glass half empty, but, you know, normally because I pour another drink. But, yeah, look, number one, Bruno Fernandes, Bruno the anchorman. We talked about him in the preview show. There were some positives here to draw on. Number two, it's Obi-Wan up top. Chido Obi Martin, the youngster for United. We'll look at him. And number three's the magic number. So De Ligt, Maguire and Lenny Yoro at the back. There were positives there, plus the youngster Aiden Heaven as well. And then Nacho's hot, but the wing-back's not. Alejandro Garnacho, let's have a look at his performance and the change that he brought to United. And then number five, I was a little bit disappointed in Fulham. They got the result, but Calvin Bassey scored the goal and there was a little sneaky set piece in there.
Absolutely. Dino, I thought that Fulham were very, very good in the first half and stopped Manchester United from playing. The second half, that less so. The Fulham seemed to sit back a lot more, almost wanted to hold on to that 1-0 lead they had at that time after Calvin Bassey's header. But just talk to me generally what you think about United, because they weren't quite as bad, weren't they, before we get into the detail?
No, and I said in the preview show when we talked about the setup and stuff like that they have to go through the phases here. And Ruben Amorim can't just go, this is an automatic change around, we're going to do something different. But this game, Bruno Fernandes, at the pivot of it, started things off. They were organised and they had a new plan to play out. I've been banging on about this for ages, that they need to have a plan to get out, not just Onana banging it forward from the goal kick and then Højlund feeding off scraps.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about Fulham's press, because I was very impressed indeed, and you've got me watching games a lot more like you do, much to my chagrin. But Bruno the anchorman, Bruno Fernandes, the preview show, go back and watch it if you haven't already. The one we done on Thursday. Dino's got his new tactics board toy and it looks absolutely brilliant. But he made some really good points and it will give this some important context. But Bruno the anchorman, in short, the point you were making on the preview show on Thursday was that his Steven Gerrard syndrome means that he's trying to do too much for Manchester United. He's picking the ball up deep in defensive areas, which is causing problems with overloads and stuff further up the pitch. And then he's trying to get involved just all over the place, and it wasn't that effective. What did you see against Fulham?
Yeah, and the structure was slightly different. So Bruno definitely has understood what Amorim wants him to do in this game. I'm not saying he wasn't doing what Amorim wanted him to do in previous games, but this was clear. As you said, Fulham's press is very good. They go 2 or 3 from the front and they stop the ball being played into the pivot in midfield, which would be Bruno. So Bruno accepted at times that he's not going to get the ball, but instead of going wandering and standing next to Harry Maguire and moving into those positions, he held that pivot position right in front of the back three. So allow Maguire to have the ball, trust Lenny Yoro and trust De Ligt in those areas. And then what United did very cleverly is Xerxes came in and Eriksen and Ugarte made like a 3-man line in front of Bruno Fernandes, or behind him if you think that he's attacking that way. And then that meant Eriksen drifted into a position, Bruno drew 2 men towards him, and Maguire or Yoro had a passing lane to give it to Eriksen to play out from. It was miles better from United in getting out from the back in that first half, and they did beat the Fulham press, which, as you quite rightly said, meant that Fulham changed their plan later on because United were getting some joy in those areas.
Yeah, well, that's what I noticed in the second half. Almost immediately I could see that Fulham was sitting right off of United's defence.
Don't let them do that. Don't let them pass it through us, which means 2 or 3 players are out the game.
But what I noticed, and you might be about to totally transform my observation on the game, so many times it seemed like Fulham were pressing well and Onana was just hoofing it long. A bit
He
Sunday
went-
League, and like to Christian Eriksen, who's got no chance.
No,
of winning
yeah,
the ball.
he went long when there was nowhere else to play. And bearing in mind that you're talking about a team with a massive lack of confidence, that's just like, fans in a stadium will go, just get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
But once it starts to work, they'll gain more and more confidence with it. The problem was not that long ball necessarily for Onana. The problem is when United got the ball in those higher areas of the field, they ended up in this position where the men with the ball are not the people who are going to beat anybody.
Yeah.
So when they played that pass from Maguire into Eriksen was obviously he's a really intelligent footballer. He's been playing for a long time, and he got the ball on the half turn. He's looked in front of him, 3 or 4 Fulham players out of the game. He's got Dalot to his left. He's got Højlund in front of him, and he's got Xerxes there.
Here I am, stuck in the
stuck in the middle. And then, but Eriksen, then what you want is a player to drive at that fullback to then make it 2v1, so the wing back can go up the outside. Eriksen's no longer got the energy to do that, the pace to do that. So the setup
He's
again
never really
was
been
good.
that player,
No,
to be
he
fair,
hasn't
has he?
really, but he was used definitely as a ploy from Amorim to get out of those positions, and it worked much better playing out. The problem is the next bit from the wing back didn't work, and then in attacking positions they look a bit lost. But let's be positive, they worked out a way of going 3 at the back, 1 in front, and then 3 or 4 ahead of that, where they could get out of those positions and play out. So that's almost like a phase 1 thing. And Bruno massively took everything on board from Amorim, definitely in the week. He spoke about
Dean Scoggins.
nothing to do with me.
Exposed.
Nothing. I'm not going to claim that at all. But Amorim actually spoke about it in his press conference on Friday about him being part of a structure in the team. So it was fairly obvious that was the case. And it was another captain's performance. Obviously, he scored the goal. He got into that attacking position in the second half as well.
What a finish that was.
A brilliant finish. And he is coming up with those numbers games, if you like. But in this game, he was much more part of the structure and the formation, as he should be. And he delivered in the final third. And we'll show his touches are actually in a position in between the penalty areas that you would expect from your number 8 or your midfield player going up and down the middle of the pitch, working hard. Again, I think he had the most touches, most passes. Obviously, he takes the set pieces, but it was much more focused in the areas of the field that he should have been. It was a positive.
So has he shed his Steven Gerrard, or did he shed his Steven Gerrard
In this game,
syndrome?
absolutely yes, and also came up with the goal that mattered. And I think a couple of times he smacked the ball forward too quickly. But that under pressure, FA Cup, tired legs. That's the way it goes. But yeah, there were some positives. And look, they didn't lose the game in normal time, did they? They did, and Fulham are a good side.
And he scored his penalty, didn't he? He was let down by his teammates in the shootout. Right, Dino, point 2. It's Obi-Wan up top. Big Star Wars fan, of course.
Absolutely, never watched it in my life, no. But yeah.
Rasmus Højlund started the game up front for Manchester United. Chido Obi-Martin comes on. Later on in the game, lots of fans very impressed with Obi, not so impressed with Rasmus Højlund. We're talking about him yet again.
Yeah, and that was another big debate from the preview show. And I gave Højlund quite a big break in that, from my point of view, that he was not getting the ball in the right areas. They weren't giving it to him in spaces. And we'll show a couple of examples again where this didn't happen again. He made some good runs and they didn't find him. And I felt a bit sorry that Garnacho didn't start. We'll come back to Garnacho in a minute. But Garnacho didn't start, and therefore that attacking sense from the left-hand side wasn't there when Højlund was on for the majority of the time. The whole first half, he got one cross from Eriksen to the front post where he had a reasonably good half chance, if you'd say, and he a confident striker might have hit the target, but at least he made that run. However, I would say Chido Obi-Martin changed the game for United. He looked a real handful.
Yeah.
He won more duels than Højlund. He created more chances than Højlund. Again, he had Garnacho with him, and he had Bruno playing a little bit more advanced in the second half with Casemiro next to him. But he put himself about. And, look, Alan Hansen once said, you never win anything with kids. But United aren't winning anything without the kids. So why don't we throw him in and see what he can do from the start? Take Højlund out of the firing line for a little bit. But what I really noticed with him, which was great, and I'm going to big up Xerxes here as well.
You'd start Obi, would you?
I would start Obi in the next game, yeah. I mean, they're playing Arsenal on Sunday as well, so there's a storyline there because this lad came from Arsenal, and they stole him from Arsenal. Perhaps he's 17 years old, but yeah, I just just give it a go, because at the moment in attacking areas, they haven't got a lot to lose.
No,
they're not
Højlund,
creating anything. And, it's not just Højlund, but it's the chemistry between those players that's missing.
Well, on your point there, Diogo Dalot, as you mentioned, seems to get in, and you've said that that's a bit of a problem if that's your out ball, even if Fernandes gets into those good positions. If Darlow's the wing back, that's where you sort of have a bit of an issue. And to be fair, I was a bit sort of taken aback when you said that to me earlier. I thought, well, no, he looks lively. He set up Bruno's goal, nice little cross, great finish. That was his only cross, bar one other, I think, of the game. He's in the position loads. I think we're going to show a graphic. Yeah. He's in the position loads, attacking like left wing positions. Two real end products.
Yeah, but I was impressed by Xerxes as well. Like, let's turn it to a positive. I was impressed by Xerxes because he, in the second half and in extra time, got closer to Obi up front than he had done to Højlund, and it was almost like two up top. So they gave Fulham a real problem to think about, and obviously because Garnacho hugged that left-hand side, it meant they had another attacking option over there. The problem is in that 3-4-3 setup then is that if Garnacho's attacking up the left and then Xerxes and Obi are in the middle, there's no attacking threat from the right, and so it was imbalanced. But at least, let's be positive about Obi. He got in the box. He gave the defenders a problem. He put himself about. I think he won 50% of his duels as compared to 20% with Højlund. He got in those positions to make some chances. And but for a really, really good Bernd Leno save, he would have scored the winner as well.
What a save
Brilliant
that was,
save.
by the way.
Brilliant
Absolutely
save.
world class.
No further away than you to me here and get that brilliant save.
Total instinct. Well, one thing I will say, Dino, with Xerxes, what I thought was really interesting, I thought he played really well. And it really made me think about what you'd said before about there's no point expecting Xerxes to be the Rashford-style player who's going to tear it down the right wing, take players on and stretch defences. And although it may not have worked in the wider system on Sunday, I actually thought he did really well at just playing to his strengths. And he was coming in a lot as that sort of inverted forward, inside forward.
And his touch is good. And he links up play well, although his penalty was woeful. Not seen many worse than that for a long time.
Well, other than Lindelof's. But yeah, he just seemed... Well, how does that, just quickly then, when he's coming inside like that and you've got Garnacho, who's a different type of player, can that be a benefit, or is that you kind of want two of the same?
We talked about it very early on when we talked about Amorim's formation. You want a balance. So if you're going to have your winger on the left in Garnacho attacking down that side, your defensive wing back should be on the left. And then your attacking wing-back should be on the right. Yeah. But Mazraoui just did not get into that position. Yeah. So there was an imbalance. But yeah, I was impressed by Xerxes again, and he worked hard and he was unlucky with his pen. Yeah.
3 is the magic number. Right, I'm finally falling into your singing traps, Dino. This is 3 at the back for Manchester United. Lenny Yoro, Matthias de Ligt, Harry Maguire were the trio. I'm still not quite convinced about what you're saying about the playing out from the back. So I saw a lot of long balls, but you were impressed overall with how they played. Yeah,
and you can't play out every time. You've got to be in a position where you play what's in front of you. And, you can't just say, we're going to do this. You're playing against Premier League footballers. So every now and again, they're going to block what you're going to do, so therefore go over it, right? But defensively, let's talk, they were very, very good. There's some real threats for Fulham. You didn't see a lot of Muniz. Didn't see a lot of Traore, who went off. Yep. Iwobi has had a fantastic season. They kept him pretty quiet. Pereira buzzed around a lot. Didn't do a great deal. They did a pretty good job.
They were contained.
They were. And Maguire led it well again. De Ligt was much, much better, both with his cross-field balls on the ball, which we'll come back to on the wing-backs in a minute, but also in defensive positions. He was willing to jump out, like they did at Anfield and like they did against Man City, where I'm trusting that Maguire or Mazraoui are going to cover me, so I'm going to follow the attacker out and put him under pressure. And they were combative. They didn't get bullied by Fulham, which they have done in previous games. And, and Yoro is feeling his way into the side and into, a big environment at Man United. But it's all led by Maguire. And I would say Maguire's had a couple of good games in a row. He played very well against Ipswich, against Delap, who's a big physical handful. And he played very well against Muniz, who's a big physical handful. And then when Jimenez came on, similarly, because that's Maguire's game. He wants that, face-to-face defending. Let's have a muscle match instead of a ball on the ground. So they did suit Maguire, but that positive to be seen. Good shape, good flat back three, played out well enough, and went out and went to their men. So pretty good, I thought.
Right, we've touched on a little bit of this already, but I want a bit more detail from you, Dino. Nacho hot, but wing-backs not. Alejandro Garnacho, as you say, came on later in the game for United, and he changed things for the good or the bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if he's bought them all dinner yet, as he was promised to after his strop the other day. But it was a case of he had a bit to prove. And I don't think he was fit enough to start. I think that was a decision that Ruben Amorim made over injury. But he should have started, because the way he played when he came on it just brought a completely different dynamic to Man United. And as we've talked about with Ruben Amorim, you have to run at defenders in this formation. Yeah. You can't then it's not set up just to play around people. You have to be direct. And when you get the number of times in the first half that Diego Dalot, I think it's Dalot instead of Dalot, but we always debate. But
I'm surprised you don't call him Diogo.
Yeah. But Dalot, get the ball a lot, don't cross it a lot, don't shoot a lot, don't do a lot. I mean, that was pretty much where we were. But when
Diogo.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, but when Garnacho got in that position straight away, and he did it especially in extra time, he got to the corner of that box and he drove into the area, and he put pressure on the defences, and he crossed the ball in, and he got to the byline, which then obviously means that a defence retreats, which means then your eights have more space on the edge of the box, and you open up those spaces. Unless you make a defender make a decision, it's not going to happen. And we'll show Mazraoui's heat map. And I know he's a defensive player, and he's got Anthony Robinson going the other way, and he's got Iwobi to mark as well. But he's just not getting into forward enough positions. So that's what I mean. We talked about in the preview show is that when they switch play, which again they did very cleverly in the first half with Højlund, Eriksen and Dalot on that side, where they overload one way and Eriksen made a really nice run inside and De Ligt switches the play. And it leaves Dalot 1v1 with his defender, and then a couple of other defenders come across in front of him, and they end up overloading that situation, and then Dalot just goes backwards again. And it's like, you've got to run at your man. You've got to isolate him 1v1. And when the ball's there to be played in the fight...
Are we talking about Dalot or
the wing-back and Mazraoui, one of the wing-backs, when they get in those positions, you're not in that position to get the ball on that touchline and then go, oh, OK, I'll play it back inside to a midfielder again. Because you want to, as we always say, get into that 3-2-5 attacking shape. And then when you isolate a player, you've got to go at him. Very early on when we talked about Amorim, we said perhaps that Amad Diallo and Alejandro Garnacho will play as wing-backs. I really think that has got to be revisited, because if you're playing Xerxes and Højlund or Obi in the middle, and then you're adding another sort of ball-playing eight to it, you've got to have wide men who are going to go at their defenders. And I know Dorgu will come back in after suspension. Cool. So perhaps you go Dorgu one side and Garnacho as the attacking wing-back the
Amad,
other.
Surely.
Yeah, when Amad's fit. Yeah, absolutely. But, and then you have direct runners and ball runners, but the wing-backs aren't doing enough in attacking areas.
Yep, totally, Dino. I completely agree, actually.
There we go.
Calvin Bassey, absolutely brilliant header to put Fulham 1-0
It was the neck
up.
muscles that went into that. It was really good. Yeah.
Now, I got a bit of stick in the comments. I'm looking at you. But for last week, saying that, Fulham aren't underrated. Everyone knows they're really good. I totally disagree. I think they're much better than the wider football community are giving them credit for. And I think, once again, on Sunday, a lot of people would have watched that and sat up and gone, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah, and also they didn't even play that well. I completely agree with you that they have gone under the radar.
They did enough to go through.
Yeah, they did enough. Yeah, I think penalties was correct, if you like, because that was the only way that was going to split the two teams.
But for you to say you're disappointed in them, even though they went through at Old Trafford,
absolutely, yeah, because that's why I think you were right about them going under the radar a little bit. Because look, unless you're fortunate enough to watch as much football as I do, then you may not have watched a lot of Fulham this year. And and they are a really, really good side. And I think in attacking areas, they weren't as good as they have been in previous weeks. Yep. And I was a little bit disappointed he didn't play 3-4-3 and match up United, because I liked the way they did that against Wolves in midweek the week before. But he went back to his preferred back four, Marco Silva, and they didn't get as much joy in those attacking areas. But again, because I thought Man United's back three were very good.
Yeah, they did play well.
Yeah. But then the breakthrough that they got was Calvin Bassey. It was Calvin Bassey's first ever FA Cup game, which is remarkable.
That is remarkable.
Yeah, it's amazing. So and then for his first goal in the FA Cup. And he scored against Man United last year as well. But this was a set-piece routine, and we love a set-piece routine here on Tactics Exposed because it's a tactic straight out of the dressing room. But they did this 2 years ago against Man United at the same end, in the cup as well, I think it was, where Mitrovic scores. So what they do is they know United are going to defend zonally, right? Most teams do now. So they drag out the first zone and they stay in on the second zone, which creates this gap around the penalty spot. So the outswinging corner can be headed into an area or flicked into an area. Last year, 2 years ago, it was Pereira's ball, came back, it was flicked in, and Mitrovic runs into the space and scores. This time, same thing again. Pereira takes the corner, Mooney's into the gap, flicked in, Bassi knows what's coming and runs onto it. Very clever, all timing and all routine. And yeah, look, as you say, Fulham just about value for it. But yeah, I wouldn't want to play them in the latter stages of the FA Cup because I think there's more from them to come. Hello, I'm Dean Scoggins from The Sun's Tactics Exposed, and we want to hear from you. This week, we're going to be looking at Manchester United versus Arsenal in Super Sunday. What are your questions? What do you want to know? Get involved in the comments below. Is it Arsenal striker problems, Man United's goal-scoring problems? We'll try and answer those in Tactics Exposed Team Talk this week.